I'm from the University of Technology, Sydney. Important two words in there, or technology and comma Sydney. We are not the University of Sydney. They're the old sort of traditional university in Sydney. We're the new up-and-coming, younger, 27-year-old university. We're in the centre of Sydney City. That map, the blue spots there, are our buildings, so they're splattered around the edge of the CBD. We don't have lush grounds like this type of campus where next to office buildings, the ABC, sort of museums and stuff, so we're part of the Sydney city. The type of courses that we offer are pretty much vocational, technical courses. We were a Institute of Technology about 30 years ago in New South Wales. Most of those were amalgamated and became universities. So we're considered a technology university, and we're part of the ATN network, which is a network of universities around Australia, all sort of similar: teaching, design, architecture, engineering, IT. We've also got social science, health, which comprises nursing and a bit of other sort of new health stuff that has come in lately: physio, traditional Chinese medicine, other things like that. So yeah, 3 campuses, 8 faculties. We have 39,000 students across those 3 campuses. 2 of them are in the city, 1 is on the north shore of Sydney. I won't even mention that. That's closing in 6 months, and we've pretty well stripped everything we've got out on the Ku-ring-gai campus into the city now. It's a bit of a problem because they're saying, you know, we've got all these additional spaces that are coming online. You're bringing the people back from Ku-ring-gai. They'll be able to help support. We're trying to explain, well, 2 years ago we brought them back because there's nothing happening on those campuses. The Audiovisual Services Department, which I'm part of, is part of the IT division, and it's a central division. We've pretty well got all of our core services as a central service model. The only non-IT central area is within the library. All the faculties are part of that division. We've a fairly large AV department, and that is large on Australian scale too. We've got 33 staff in the team. The client services team makes up half of that. We're covering from 8 till 9:30 in terms of staff coverage across those 2 campuses. We're also doing the first level support, maintenance, event support, and any sort of corporate activities. So it seems like we've got a lot, but we're covering a fair amount within that. The projects and maintenance team as well is large, but we're doing all of the design, all of the programming in-house. We will contract out to an integrator, but we've given them our sort of code, our design work, and then they will come in and do it. So it's a lot that's done in-house. Just a list of the number of spaces and the types of spaces we've got. In terms of saying we've got 600 plus AV equipped spaces, that is covering teaching spaces, meeting rooms, student pods, and event gallery spaces. Now, these spaces aren't just a meeting room. It may be a meeting room and then it becomes a student pod. There's a lot of doubling up in terms of those spaces. The plus after everything is because I honestly couldn't give you a fixed number with the amount of new buildings that we've had come online. We've had 3 buildings opened since July last year, and that pretty much doubled our teaching spaces on campus, and a combination of teaching spaces, specialists, labs or whatever, and student pods. And as part of that process, we're also then refurbishing the existing spaces, so the number is changing daily. Digital signage is fairly extensively moved out across the campus, as well as having the information displays outside all of new rooms. We've got feed from the timetable so you can see what the occupancy schedule for the room for the day is, and that's encouraging people, students or anyone, to be able to go in and use the room when it's not being timetabled. So that's a snapshot of UTS. Moving on to the AETM, we are a like organisation similar to SCOMS. We were established in 2001, and our membership is drawn from the Asia Pacific region. In saying that, it's pretty much Australia and New Zealand, although we do have some members who come and join us from Hong Kong. I'm just looking and seeing there. She's sitting down in the background, so we share Tony as a member between both organisations. We have a sort of similar remit to you in terms of providing training for users. It's a listserv networking opportunity. We have a conference. We've taken some study tours. Panasonic took a group of the membership over to Japan to do a study tour 2013, and we've also got sort of awards and scholarships that we provide for people. So part of that award and scholarship is me attending this conference. And we have close partnerships with similar organisations like SCOMS and CCUMC. Aileen's team and the exec from AETM, we're meeting monthly via video conference, and that's something we'd like to do with SCOMS, although it's going to be difficult with the 3 time zones. We're sort of getting the early morning, well, it's well past Aileen's finishing time. In terms of the membership, we are not just university-based. We expanded in 2013 to take in not just the universities, but looking at any other organisation that was providing AV or learning technology in a learning context. Things like courts, regional health services, museums, galleries, all of those sort of areas are able to join us, as well as non-university higher ed areas. That's TAFE, I don't know if that's the equivalent of a polytechnic here, but TAFE is sort of vet post-secondary higher ed. So they can't award degrees, but they do sort of diploma and certificate courses. Of the 48 member unis across Australia, of the 48 possible unis that we could have as members across Australia and New Zealand, we've got 42 who are members. So that is one of the reasons why we expanded in terms of the membership sort of range. We've only got 48 universities that we can possibly ever have as members. And when I hear here, it's like, we've hit 100 and you haven't got all of the universities in the UK. It's like, well, okay, it's a very different sort of landscape. We've only got one of the non-university sector that has continued being a member, and that's something that we do have to work on. That's a Te Papa gallery in New Zealand, so that's a major gallery in New Zealand. In terms of what we've done in the last 12 months, we're now an incorporated body. Prior to that, we were just an organisation that was registered. That's been a lot of our work, making ourselves legal, so to speak, and it's meant that committee members are no longer the ones who are liable if anything goes wrong, and are not entering into these individual contracts with the vendors or the venues that we're doing presentations and events in. And we also changed our name from the Association of Educational Technology Managers to the Association for Audiovisual and Educational Technology Management. So that was one of our sort of major works in the past 12 months. One of the sort of drawbacks of the becoming legal and becoming incorporated was that we've had to start paying tax on what we're receiving from our sponsor income, and that's meant we're having to also rethink our whole sort of budget and planning and how we do things. So, yeah. The other thing that we worked on quite extensively was the rebranding, the logo there and the new name. AV Magazine, which I think you have the equivalent of here, they helped us quite a lot in the design, and they've been very sort of generous in what they've done for us. We've also had a new website, which I won't go into it because it's sort of probably going to take quite a long time, but that's the link. What we've got on the website is, at this stage, it's all public, but we will be going into having a members area. So it's a range of what we offer, how to join, conferences, and also case studies of the types of work that membership has been doing. We have a conference each year. That conference is very, very similar to the conference you have here. It moves around the country, although we tend to stay on the East Coast only because travel from New Zealand to Perth or Western Australia ends up being quite lengthy, and it's not a cheap place to go to. So while we'd like to go everywhere, we are limited with spaces that have a reasonable sized venue, a campus that is able to host us, and it's accessible for everyone in the time zone. So our conference is a 3-day conference. It'll be held in November this year, and I believe Paul will be attending, and we've had a number of others, Simon and Jim, who've come out in the past. It's at RMIT University and the University of Melbourne. We try to have a on-campus focus, although we're finding that campuses are not big enough for us to do everything that we want to do with our conference. So we'll have one day on a campus, and the other days we've had to move into a hotel to do the trade show exhibition side of things. The spaces that we're using at RMIT and Melbourne University are the Swanston Academic Building, which some may have heard of. It's about 3 years old. It was a major sort of collaborative space that the business school put in, and it gets cited a lot in terms of what other buildings are to look like in terms of future learning spaces. Melbourne Design School, again, a new building that opened this year at Melbourne University, and that holds their architecture and School of Design. Much of the focus around the conference in the on-campus days will be how those spaces have been used by both the academic users and the students who've worked in the spaces. So it'll be a combination of space use and tours of the spaces. And tours of the spaces has always been a key part of our conference. We want to be able to be on a campus so that we can go around and we'll look at theatres. There's a lot of looking at racks, there's a lot of checking out how projectors are mounted, how they're secured, so that's sort of an afternoon generally in our conferences. We too have a reciprocal or sort of joint membership arrangement with Infocom. That's been going for 2 years. We've got a 3-year agreement with them. Our membership fees mean that you get membership to Infocom as well. It's worked to some extent. We haven't been able to get as much out of it in terms of the training, but we also haven't really known what we wanted to do. A lot of the training that they've been offering has been 3-day courses, and it's like we can't take people out for a 3-day course and it's not available for a wider range, or sort of the wider membership. So we've got them to agree now to smaller sections of the 3-day courses, being able to run those as webinars or sort of part of a round table or a chapter meeting that they might have. The other thing that we're really pushing is if we're to do this training with them, we want to be getting RUs for our CTS, because there's not a lot that's offered in Australia for training apart from the manufacturer training, which is fine, but if you're not dealing with that manufacturer, you don't necessarily want to do their training. Face-to-face courses, maybe 2 or 3 a year, but again, you end up working through all of those courses. And I mean, for my university, we've got people now onto their 3rd renewal, and we don't have enough in terms of new, fresh courses, both the online, the face-to-face and the vendor stuff, for them to be able to do stuff without repeating. And Infocom said, oh, well, you could go and do that course again. It's like, well, no, I don't really want people to be repeating a course. Or you could go and do X manufacturer's training. No, I don't want them going to someone who we're not dealing with. It doesn't seem right. So that's one of the things that we've been working heavily with Infocom in terms of training that is more accessible to the wider membership, if that's going to be in terms of an online webinar or a small short course, rather than having people taken out for 3 or 4 days to do a course. The other thing that we've been working with Infocom in Australia is the Women in Infocom, which we will be launching towards the end of this year. That's been a group of AETM and vendor women who have just been meeting informally, and Infocom has kind of put us in contact with similar people in the US who are doing this, so that's been another useful thing. There's not a lot of women who are in the AETM or working in this area within Australia. I'd say you've probably got more women represented here. We're lucky to have 1 in 10 in terms of our membership attending conferences. Another thing that we're working on with Infocom is the Integrate Education program, similar to what you do with ISE We have a trade show that is held in Australia annually. It's in Melbourne this year, and we sponsor people to attend. We're also working again with Infocom to get some training incorporated into that. Other things that we've got coming up in terms of future plans, chapter meetings. That's something that not everyone can attend the conference, so we're trying to do local, state or regional meetings. We'll trial one in July in New Zealand. That will be a model to see how we want to take them in future, and that will be covered by a sponsor. Another thing that we've got is the design guidelines. Now, we've done 2 revisions to those now. We're not planning on doing anything in the near future. The only thing we really need to do is change it so that the name is consistent with our new name and the look has the new branding. But we also want to work with Infocom and see what they're doing in terms of their guidelines rather than reinventing, because it was an awful lot of work, as you probably realise, similarly to do that. The final thing that we're working on is 2 short videos. One would be something that we would use as promotional in conferences, but another, that'll be a 60-second piece. And we have a 2-minute piece that will be more sending out to potential members, galleries, museums, whatever, so that they can see what the AETM is, benefits, and the case studies that we're sort of showcasing. And that's also working with manufacturers. So that's AETM World at the moment.